Wow.
Live.
And then she stepped on the ball.
We need a new line.
I know, but then, it's classic.
So, we have no mics, but that's okay. We have no mics and we must scream. We're doing just a little Lovecraft podcast here. I know it says on the program an hour and a half, but probably no. So maybe 20 to 30 minutes. You guys all know who we are? Do you want us to introduce ourselves?
Yeah, give some intros.
Intros. I'm Mike Davis with Lovecraft eZine.
I'm Pete Rollick. I write books, I watch bad movies, and I occasionally post my thoughts about them in drunken diatribes that nobody really reads.
You have your new book at our vendor table.
I do.
And some other books that you're selling.
Yes. So we have Eldritch Equations just came out. This is the first place you can buy it. Pre-orders are available from the publisher, but those aren't shipping yet.
And this is the only place you get the noir cover. If there's psychedelic color, will be in the later editions.
No, you don't have to go over here.
I don't have to call them.
Okay. Good enough. Matt, you want to introduce?
Hi, I'm Matt Carpenter. A couple things. I run Lovecraft eZine Movie Night. If you like, we tend to choose movies that are not straight up slasher type horror. We watch movies that more have a bent towards cosmic horror. We do this every Saturday evening, most weekends, starting about 9 p.m. Central Time U.S. We do it on the application Cast. There's a side chat that you can snark on. We recently watched the movie Prey. We've watched The Empty Man. We've watched a lot of great shows. We've also watched The Beast of the Water. So that's one thing that I do. And the other is, if you are interested, I would encourage you, we're doing a public reread of Lovecraft stories, which is the first time this has been done in a few years in some kind of public forum. And right now that is strictly available on the Facebook page for Lovecraft eZine.
It's actually a group, technically. Just has to be invited. Ask the group. So, but yeah, it's pretty cool that you're doing
We're at the transition of Juan Romero, your favorite.
that. All right, yeah. Bridget.
Hello, I'm Bridget Widmark. Hey, we have sound. I'm a final girl, creator of music and art. Have a piece up for auction at the Lovecraft eZine table. Benefits go to the Lovecraft eZine. It is silent auction, so there's a form there. Go put down a bid. Whoever's the top bid at noon on Sunday is the winner. Why do I keep saying winter? Winter is coming. The winner, 12 by 12 canvas. So please come check it out. Also, I have a workbook that I've been writing about how to write scary music. And that will be for sale on my website in the next couple of months. You can get details about that at the Lovecraft eZine table too. Thank you for being awesome fans and showing up today.
Yeah, so how are you doing this so far?
I'm having a really good time. We got in Thursday at noon, and we hiked out to Coventry and did some secret stuff out there.
Secret?
Secret
For me, you do.
Yeah, we did not a lot of
All right.
but we did stuff out there. If I talk about it, you'll know about it, and then I can't. Yeah, it's a secret.
Oh, all right.
But,
So that's how secrets become not secrets.
Exactly.
Okay.
You tell my games, or you tell the Lovecraft podcast.
Right.
That's something everybody knows.
People watch it.
But then, we got back here, we had dinner, I went to the Red Door party, Red Door party. I had way too many beers. And, what's that? No, it doesn't, and particularly it's a 9-minute walk.
It's a 9-minute walk there and a 45-minute walk back.
It's staggering.
Ouch.
And then but by that point, like 9 o'clock, I'd been up since 2 o'clock in the morning. So I decided I would fall asleep and get some sleep. The Airbnb did warn us that the Strand nightclub plays music. He's laughing, but you guys know, right?
Who's staying with you, Sal?
Sal, yeah. So we're on the second floor of the Strand. At 10 o'clock, the whole building begins to shake. And that continues until 2 o'clock in the morning. Now, thankfully, the Airbnb owner has provided headphones and earplugs. So this is actually a thing they know about, and this is like, yeah, you're in for a treat. But like tomorrow night, I think we're not even coming to the con because Method Man and Redman are playing at the Strand, and we're like, either we're gonna go and listen to Redman and what did I say, Method Man, or we're just gonna stay and hang up on the window and get high. Great, one way or the other. But yeah, I'm coming to the convention tomorrow. But it's really interesting because my wife's a big fan, and she's like, "Wait, you're doing what?" Like, yeah, the downstairs. Maybe we'll just hang on the back door and get some signatures.
Well, so you were awake when I texted you to see if you wanted to do something. And you said you were in bed.
Yes. I had taken like all my medication to fall asleep. This is my new thing. It's like my doctor says it's not good that I only sleep 2 or 3 hours at night. So they give me like these concoctions of pills that like
To create forms of yourself.
yeah, no, it's to sleep. And but you don't want to get, if you do just one thing, you get used to it and then you don't sleep anymore. So they've got me all these different mixtures. And that's like, don't get used to anything. And, but once you take it, you're sort of like, you can't do anything. Does that make sense? No.
We'll pretend it does. I want to ask Matt a couple questions next, but I want to say I've seen at least 10 or so t-shirts like this. I'm at the Lovecraft Museum podcast. People wearing those today, I really appreciate it. So,
Thanks, Pete.
yeah. So, appreciate everyone who did.
Pete doesn't belong.
Sorry, Dad.
Wait a minute, I see one.
I know. So here's the thing. I have teenage girls, and they've discovered my t-shirts, and they're all there now.
They make good pajamas, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, they raid my closet, and it's like,
All right, I'll allow that.
and
Yeah.
I've never seen the shirts again.
Yeah. If you want to throw your kids at the bus, it's fine.
I've gone
And also thanks. I won't go on with this, but thanks very much to my patrons because you guys really keep me on financial. I couldn't do it without you. So thank you. Rick, did you have something? No, I'm sorry. I thought it was like your turn. Oh, Pete, take care of that. All right, Matt, what are some of the highlights that you've had so far, this being, the middle of the first real big day, Friday?
Okay, so
And what are you hoping?
yesterday we thought we would do something, an hour and a half indulgence. Have any of you done an escape room?
Yeah.
There's a company called Escape with Rhode Island, and it's just on the other side of the river on Main Street. They have an outdoor one that's a Lovecraftian experience, where it takes you from place to place to solve puzzles. So we get there, and the guy just kind of hands us a briefcase. It's a map, and he says, it's maybe no more than 2 miles of walking. It's like they had us like practically climbing up Mount the Matterhorn. And we gradually solve all the puzzles. So we get to the very end, which is in that famous Gates by Brown University. Remember that picture of Lovecraft sitting there in the corner? That's where the finale of the game is. And none of the codes work. And it's not even that it's like, so we finally finished the game at like 5:55 before the opening ceremonies. And I have to drop all the materials back at the company, which is like, 3/4 of a mile away still.
Providence is built on like 9 hills,
I'm not saying it wasn't fun. But if you go to Escape Rhode Island, you may wish to consider the escape room, not the escape Providence.
Oh, there we are. All right, so what else have you done, or do you want to talk about some things you're looking forward to?
Okay, there are going to be 3 performances by the H.P. Lovecraft Historical Society in this very room starting tonight. All of them are probably going to be well worth seeing. There's also going to be live storytelling of the famous M.R. James ghost story, Whistle and I'll Come to You. They've hired this very good storyteller. He does a solo performance of that. I'm looking forward to that. And then actually right after this panel at the Armitage Symposium, they've got a real scientist coming in talking about the possibility of life on Europa. And I'm really looking forward to that. That's probably the discussion I'm looking forward to most.
Yeah, I was really going to walk over with you to listen to that, because that really interests me. I'm really interested in astronomy. I'm by no means a scientist or an expert, but I've been reading and watching documentaries about that kind of thing my whole life. I did go to the moon, but that's it. But it's a creepy and amazing thing to think about at the same time. This ocean of Europa, what might or might not be down there.
It's not just going to be me saying what I think. It's going to be like someone who really knows about this stuff.
Yeah, that would be good. So, Bridget, this is your first time
Yes.
at the convention.
This is my first time. I've wanted to go before, but this is my first time here. I'm so glad.
And you're on the East Coast now, right?
Yes, I'm on the East Coast now. We just finished moving from California to Virginia. Knew we were only in California for a short time, but that was still quite a haul to drive all the way to Virginia. So that's why we're on the East Coast now, and so now when Matt posts the Lovecraft book of the day or whatever, it's now at a normal human time instead of 3 in the morning. So
No.
that's nice.
Be understanding. It's not at a normal human time because it's like 5:30 in the morning, and I'm like, what is Matt doing?
I know, but usually it's
Some of
5:30
us work
Central
from-
Time, which is like 1 in the morning at 1:30 on the West Coast.
Some of us have to go to work,
Yeah, some of us just work really late.
Not you, but some of us.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to the walking tour. This is my first time in Providence. We're going to do a walking tour on Saturday. There's a music panel, so of course I'm going to nerd out about that. Going to the Eldridge Ball for the first time.
Well, what did you tell out in the costume?
Yeah, kind of. I don't know.
I'll fess up. What is
It's just fancy dress.
Okay.
And then just taking in the sights and sounds and visiting and meeting people. It's amazing just being out with people that share an interest after being cooped up for a long time. I'm sure a lot of you feel the same way.
In my drunken staggering home last night, I was stopped in the street by someone who recognized me. And was like, "You're my favorite person on the Lovecraft eZine." And I'm like, "What?"
You said, "Thank you, officer."
And then they hauled me back to the asylum. But no, it felt really, really bizarre to be recognized. And,
You're famous.
yeah, no, that's just weird. It's weird.
It's cool.
They said you're your favorite person, not favorite character.
Right, that was a Joe Palmer thing. Somebody, when Joe came here one year, he was stopped and they said, "You're my favorite character on the eZine." And we're not comic book characters. I'm not the amazing Squirrel Girl. Yes.
Okay, so let me tell you what else I really like about this. I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people I know from regular podcasts on the eZine that I've never met in person before. How wonderful.
Will Murray is right there. Fred. He's a real scientist.
What am I, Jacqueline?
Yes.
What is that?
Astronomers. Let me amend that to astronomers.
Biology is
He's a
real.
biologist.
Biologists.
I'm a knowledge. My
Yeah.
specialty is pond scopes.
Love it.
So, me too.
I hear you can make a really good living cleaning ponds.
Actually, yes. Especially this time of year, yeah.
I I recently joined my HOA board, and like we're paying, like it's $20,000 a year to clean your pond. Like, please, I'm in the wrong business. So I was a couple of years ago. Somebody's like, "Oh, you're going to a sci-fi convention. These people, they don't have real jobs. They just do this, they do that. They're just nerds who, congregate together." And I'm like, seriously? Matt Carpenter's an oncologist. Fred Lovedale is a limnologist. I'm a marine biologist, an aquaculturist. You work for the Army. Alan's a school teacher. You're a spook. Am I wrong?
Hence, his picture is not.
Mike's an architect.
He's Mike was a real estate agent.
I was until
An architect. There are the days that people think that this was just a nerd thing that kids went to. Is long gone.
It's now a geek thing.
It's a geek thing, but geeks now run the world. Like I studied calculus, marine biology, aquaculture, limnology, geology. You know what? I took one elective in computers. You know what I do all day? I sit on a friggin' computer and program. And every job is almost like that now. It's all computer based, and the more you know about how your computer operates, the better off you are. And that's all geek stuff. My age in the '80s, nobody paid attention to it, and now it runs the world. So it's kind of
one of the things that we often do on podcasts, we're trying to grow up books, writers. We talk about our favorite recent or older horror movies, things like that. If you're a fan of comic horror, you're a fan of horror, pretty much. So, with that in mind, we were going to talk about Prey, and I don't think we ever got to that.
right.
Yeah. So, did everybody see Prey yet?
I have.
What do you think? Do you guys like it?
Well, I was driving across country for a week, so I just.
I commented on this on my Facebook. Do you want to go?
Sure.
Go first.
Because Pete's going to say this is the best Predator series movie ever.
It is.
But the thing is, as wonderful as this movie is, it didn't have Arnold in it. And there's no one yelling, "Get to the chopper!" And so I don't care, if you think this had a better script or better acting.
Old man yells at cloud.
Fight!
This didn't have didn't have all those men flexing their biceps. I mean, what the heck? What's happened to cinema? It's a wonderful. If you haven't seen it, it's wonderful.
That character is cool. Yeah. And that one flip from the tree and smart enough to figure out his technology and to get him with it, in the early 1700s. So, yeah, pretty amazing film.
No, that was only part of what I was going to say. I think that Prey is the best Predator movie that's ever been made. What I'm going to say is that everybody has jumped on the bandwagon and said this should be the model for how Predator movies are made from this day forward. And I agree. However, for those of us who aren't casuals and who've been reading the Predator comic books for the last 30 years, Dark Horse Comics got to this place a long time ago. And they got there with, so if you've seen Predator 2, most of Predator 2 was lifted from the first 4 issues of the Predator comic. Aliens vs. Predator, all the good stuff in that film was stolen from the Aliens vs. Predator comics.
Batman. The Batman 2 is actually Predator lands in Gotham.
Yeah. Well, there were, I think, 2, maybe 3 Batman.
No, there's really good Batman, I'll get inside Batman graphic novels, comics about Batman vs. Predator.
They've done a Japanese one, they've done an American Indian one. They've been here in piloted this for a long time. It's just that it's an IP that Disney's not touching this stuff because they don't own it outright.
Yeah.
So,
What was the name of the stage? The name of the character, the woman, the Indian woman? What? Yeah, now she's a Disney princess.
but so is the Indian Queen.
Really?
Don't own by Disney.
So it's Squirrel Girl.
So is Squirrel Girl, yes.
Is your computer still recording?
Yeah, it's just
Okay.
screensaver.
Not that micromanage. What do you want to say about Fred? Or have you seen it?
I haven't seen it yet, but I love Alien vs. Predator, so personally, I'm Team Alien.
You will love this.
This movie is really good.
Yeah, okay.
I can't see anybody watching it and not having a good time.
Yeah. I don't know if anybody does. I don't want to crowd on the spot here, but since we're doing this face to face, unlike how we usually do the podcast, of course. Do you guys have any questions for us?
Yeah, please.
About anything.
Ask me anything,
Hey, it's an AMA.
and I will lie.
If you need dating advice,
Don't ask me.
Don't, yeah. I've only been married 5 times. Yeah. What's that?
I said only.
Yeah, no. Now, this last time we saw, I think we're into we just celebrated our 15th wedding anniversary. So I think we're sticking together. Plus, we signed paperwork that said that.
Such a romantic.
Right?
Hey, Mandy, I think we're going to stick together.
Well, she's been married before, and I've obviously been married before, and we're like, the only way out of this is, like, we're not going through divorce again. The only way out is murder.
Can I follow you around to get
So
romance
if you
tips?
disappear, we know.
Yes.
So no questions, except for this from the segment.
Oh, please ask questions.
How much you get paid by Mike to be on
Oh,
I just got a 30% raise. Because,
30% times 0.
it's still 0.
well, Mike, why don't you just give us a brief history of when this started, why you started this? Because this podcast evolved out of a magazine.
Yeah, and I'm going to, when I get back, I started it before I left. Revamping the website a little bit, lovecraftez.com, simplifying it a little bit. But basically, I had 2 thoughts when I started this in 2011. One was, an electronic magazine that was actually good quality stories. That you'd think, hey, I could have read this in an anthology. It's that good. And I think that a lot of the time, most of the time, we achieve that. If that's all compliments to the writers. The other thing that I wanted to establish right away is a community. Just kind of a hub for people to, hang out online and so forth. And so, with that in mind, I started just doing, hey, does anybody want to just chat, just out in the blue and say, listen, this might be a Saturday night at 10:30. And, we'd get on back then with Google Hangouts and talk. And then it just, I don't know when, then it evolved and it clicked in my mind that, hey, just do this at a certain time every week. Because it's more or less evolved into a podcast. So, that's what happened. And then, we did the YouTube podcast in a couple of years, and then I was here at one convention. I was sitting next to Jeffrey Thomas in the donut store one morning, and Dave Feldman walks by. And for those of you who don't know, Dave Feldman's a really, really good artist in the community. And so he goes, Mike, I really like your podcast, but I sure wish it was, audio only too, in addition to this, so I could listen to it in my car and so forth. I was like, oh, thanks, Dave. And I thought to myself, nope, I'm not doing all that. I'm not doing that extra work. But, the thing is, I realized pretty quickly that David was right, and that that's where most of the traffic comes from now. And there's plenty of people who like to watch live, and even more who.
About 20 of you.
Yeah. Hey, more than I thought. Yeah. Most people are at lunch right now. Usually people value food more than us, but
Yes.
you never know. And yeah,
When the apocalypse, I'm going to eat you first.
thank you.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I can't run. I kind of can. And you know, then more people like to watch later, and then the vast majority like to listen on the go. So that's how it happened. And you know, I started asking writers and artists that I admired to be on the show. I was lucky enough to have a couple of them as panelists already. Back then, Pete is a writer. Joe came on. He was a writer, as we all know. And you know, Matt has been providing a valuable service to the Lovecraftian community for a long time. Well,
Yes, that's true.
in his reviews of books, it used to be that, you know, a lot of people thought, you know, Matt Carpenter reads all, you know, every Lovecraftian book, which is like impossible to do these days. And if he said he liked it, it's going to be good, you know, I'll buy it. And then if he didn't like it, then it was, a lot of people counted on his reviews of books. So I was really lucky to get the people I did.
Every week, I would go out to Matt Carpenter's lists on Amazon and see what new was coming out so that I could buy it. And Matt maintained these huge lists on Amazon lists of books in that category.
Yeah, it's really dumb that they got rid of that
And it's like,
feature.
Yeah, not to mention the Lovecraftian book a day that you've been doing for 3 years, I think, that you post on Facebook. And I know for me, that's how I learned about a lot of different books and discovered a lot of things. So.
Amazon changed their formats. It's all in the past.
By the way, I want to take the opportunity to tell you wrong about something. I could have done this in private, but now you in one of your Lovecraftian books of the day last week, it was The Broken Hours by Jacqueline Baker.
That was like a few weeks ago.
Yeah, where Lovecraft hires more or less an assistant, and you said that this is 1936 and 1936. You know, there's no way Lovecraft could have done that because he was a broken cell. But actually, the story explains how he did it. I don't want to give it away, but he explains it. I think it's a good book. You don't like it?
No, it's fine. It's fiction. She can do what the hell she wants.
Yeah. Well,
She could have made him charming.
I mean, Matt will tell you true, though. You posted something the other day, and I said, wow, that's a really amazing cover. And he said, yeah, that's the best part of the book. I was like, fair enough. I will not bother.
what was the one? Was it The Dark Destroyer from Glasby?
Do you know John Glasby? He wrote
Yeah,
under
he
his
said
own
that.
name.
No, he's dead.
He wrote under his own name, but he also wrote under about 10 pseudonyms. He's from the UK. He's incredibly prolific. Any genre you name, he was writing science fiction, westerns, romances, historical fiction, science fiction. Well, why not Lovecraftian prestige? So there are 4 separate collections of his Lovecraftian stories available on the market right now. No duplication across the board. He has 3 Lovecraftian linked novels about Cthulhu. And then there's this other book called The Dark Destroyer that has Lovecraftian themes.
From Sarah Press?
Yeah, but by God, you know, it's like he's got throughput. You know, but in terms of quality control, he's moving on to the next book already. So The Dark Destroyer has this incredibly moody cover of oranges and blues like a sunset, and there's a dark figure with horns lurking. And you think, this is going to be a great book. No.
So, yeah, so the
Quantity versus quality.
two kind of parts of the podcast are us talking about horror and various, you know, topics. And, you know, the other part of it is when we have a it's almost every week. You know, we've had like Gemophiles, Paul Tremblay, all kinds. Ramsey Campbell's been on the show.
You can see things like John Langan do his German Godzilla.
Yeah.
You
And
can see
Cisco
Michael
doing-
Werner Herzog.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there is lots of highbrow entertainment.
Yeah, actually, if you go to the Lovecraft eZine YouTube page, and you scroll down the clips, one of the clips is John and Cisco were both on the podcast that day, and so near at the end of the podcast, John challenges, he basically says, so Cisco, why don't you just, I don't know, do Werner Herzog impression as if he was eating a fish dinner. And it's out of the blue, and it was funny as hell. It had to be in my mind because I was laughing so hard. So yeah, go to Lovecraft eZine on YouTube. Check out that clip. So, you know, if you've never heard any of our podcasts about the audience, first of all, thanks. This is basically the side of where we just talk about various things, you know. So,
Hey,
Yeah.
Hannah.
yes, who's got the good luck?
Fred jumped down on the question first.
Yeah, actually, I was curious if you've seen the trailer for the Guillermo del Toro's upcoming.
Oh,
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow, that looks exciting.
Yeah, isn't it?
Do you know Guillermo del Toro? This is like the audience. You know, he's coming up with a series, I think, for Netflix.
Right.
Cabinet of Curiosities.
The autopsy.
Yes.
That's the
Michael Sherry.
The autopsy.
yeah, and he's
Couple
also.
Lovecraft series.
Lovecraft.
Dream of the Witch House and Pickman's Model.
So I'm thinking this might be a good thing for movie night.
Somebody, someone involved with the project told me that, and I think this may be common knowledge now, but it's gonna, something like it's gonna air at the end of October and lead up to Halloween with a new one every night.
Yeah, I think he said there's 2 episodes the first night, and then, yeah, two episodes the next night for like the 4 days before Halloween.
So yeah, Fred,
It's gonna be awesome.
I'm really looking forward to it, really looking forward to it.
I was really excited to see that there are different directors, different collaborators on every episode, and Pickman's Model is one of my favorite stories, so I'm particularly excited about that.
The one panel, the autopsy, I think many of the here in this room that probably would rate it in their top 10 of horror short stories. It's not named the autopsy in the series. I forget what's been renamed to, but I saw, you know, when you're watching the trailer, you see clips of different episodes, and I saw the autopsy one. I'm like, oh man, this is like how I imagined it. Fred's nodding. You know exactly what I mean. So yes, very much looking forward to it. Kevin, you had a question?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, you know, for anybody who hasn't experienced podcasts before, maybe, and talk about the page and all the additional content that you do, because there's a lot of like,
Oh yeah.
side things you do that are really, really great.
Basically, it's more podcasts and some other cool things as well. Sometimes, you know, I'm able to post to the Patreons only something from the HPP Lovecraft Historical Society's a short story that they've done, things like that. I do a deep background series. Matt Carter is next. And deep background is just basically me not really talking about the author's work so much as who the author is or the artist, whoever they are, and how they, you know, how did they become this person? You know, what made them want to decide to write? It's just more focused on the person, getting to know them. Right.
They get together. They go to the Babies R Us store.
I think this is going to be defeated now with your friendship.
I think so.
So yeah, and subjects and guests that I might not necessarily cover on the Sunday podcast. So yeah, Sam Hale, who wrote the Batman '89 movie, is going to be on an upcoming Patreon podcast later this month. And I don't know how to say his name right, but Joe Manolis. Is that right?
You know this?
Manolis? He's an artist. Sam and he did a Batman 89 limited comic series in the last year or two. So it'll be really interesting to talk to those guys.
Another thing about the eZine community is we don't really want it to be one way. We really have, at the podcast, there's an ongoing stream of questions or comments from people who are watching live, or people mail Mike a question or something, and we try and bring it up on air. So it's very much like Mike said, a community. So if there are any questions or things that you all want to talk about right now, hey, bring it up.
And let's not forget that we now have the Lovecraft eZine hotline, where if you have an Eldritch emergency,
It's fine. It's cool.
you can phone us.
It's cool.
Mike's number is.
It's not my cell number. It's a free Google
Uh-huh.
phone number, and it goes straight to voicemail.
You
So.
didn't answer me.
No, I didn't answer.
Somebody
I don't
answered.
answer anybody. That's the point. It goes to voicemail.
Oh, great. So why didn't you just have
State
the
your
number
question.
up there?
eZine 911, what's your Eldritch emergency?
You know, after a while, my hands start to hurt when I'm typing replies to emails. So that was the main thought, really.
Right.
I want to see if anybody else has any questions, but I would say the other person who has been there almost from the beginning is Rick Lang. And I just love Rick to death. I think he's one of the best men I've ever met.
Do you all know Rick Lay? He's an expert in pulp fiction.
Will does, for sure.
It's not just he's an expert, he's also an author and a collector. And their national organization just gave him his their Lifetime Achievement Award.
Muncie, I think it is.
Yeah, the Muncie Award. It's really a big deal in the pulp. Yeah, it's a big deal. So he was really proud of it. It's kind of like they have an award here they give every 2 years. It's one of those things that's not many people active in the community will receive such an award. It just shows you how lucky we are to have him on our podcast.
Yeah, he left me a voicemail after he got it.
I know. That's
Even if I see Rick calling, I don't know, but I missed it somehow. But I was really glad later that I did, because I got this really nice voicemail with Rick, telling me he won the award, and really excited about it, the voicemail. So I'm very happy for him. Long overdue. Absolutely. And he talked to us in the podcast before, Will. He was really hoping that this time he'd get it. So yeah,
Some of the panels.
in the podcast, I try to, honestly, and I really mean this, try to surround myself with people who are bigger than me or know more than me. There's a businessman, David Ogilvy, I think his name is. Every time he hires a manager, he gives them a Russian doll. And I'm doing this by memory, but if the manager or whoever he is curious enough to open the Russian doll, they'll find another one, and then another one, and then another one. They get down all the way to the last one, the smallest one, and there's a note there that says, if we hire people who are smaller than us, it's a really good quote. So I'm sorry, I'm badly paraphrasing it. We're going to fail, but if we hire people who are larger than us, then we will become a company of giants. And I think that really applies not just to business, but to so many things. So, and Rick is certainly one of those people. And Matt and Rick.
You too.
You too.
No, it's fine. Yeah.
I honestly feel very lucky to have made these friends, made the friends I've made through the Patreon and other ways by listening to podcasts and whatnot. There's a ton of free Lovecraftian or comic or weird fiction stories to read at the website, and they'll always be there. and more focused on bugs. It's a small press, but those stories will always be there. So. Did anybody else have a question before we wrap up?
Just out of curiosity, if you could see one Lovecraft story film, and it could be a huge multi-million-dollar, could be a tiny little indie movie, I'd be curious from each and every one of you, which Lovecraft story would you like to see film?
Can I say two?
Sure.
I would say, assuming both of these are really well done, At the Mountains of Madness and Shadow Out of Time. And a lot of the other stories have been done and redone. Some of them have been done well, and some of them haven't. But I'd love to see those two. Me personally. What about you, Pete?
Yeah, I think ultimately, Shadow Out of Time has to be made. A lot of the other ones, a lot of the short ones, like if I see another music of Eric Zahn, and while we don't have a definitive edition of The Color Out of Space yet, we have 5. So do we need another interpretation? Maybe.
Probably not.
But, can we just let Nicolas Cage have his 10 years? I really wanted to touch on things that haven't been done. So everyone wants to do At the Mountains of Madness. That's a huge undertaking with weather and and landscape. I think you could do Shadow Out of Time with any desert and some good special effects. They don't even have to be that good.
Sure, but remember, Fred says the effect of it. The budget was there, everything was there.
Shadow Out of Time.
That is probably in my top 3 favorite Lovecraft stories, Shadow Out of Time, personally.
I don't know. I think about will these stories work cinematically?
Yeah.
And I have an issue with the At the Mountains of Madness is this whole history is told through them glancing at a few hieroglyphics, and suddenly they understand the whole history of how's that work. So they're going to have to modify the story to make it work. Because I thought something that would probably be, you could make a 90-minute feature about it, update it, modify it a little bit, but basically, wouldn't the Hound work as sort of like in the genre of a werewolf picture? You know what I mean? That vicious creature chasing them. I
Isn't there a short films?
But I was thinking for a feature film.
Yeah.
You could. Pardon?
I was just going to say, there is a short enough playing in a short box for that used to be
Yeah, I was just thinking, this is something I'm thinking, could it work as I love The Outsider, but can that really work as a
We could
feature
make that
film?
a 2-hour movie, my God.
Well, we could.
Well, they did.
You
did.
Yeah.
You could, but
We did.
come on.
Stuart Gordon did Castle Creek.
Oh, Castle Creek.
And then there's the remake
Good
of
point.
Castle Creek.
I just think that might be one that I would actually like to see because there are these two characters. You could explore their dissipation. You read the short story by Poppy Z. Bright, His Mouth Did Taste of Wormwood? That's like the Hound on steroids. I think you could do a lot with that story in a movie.
Good.
So 2 answers. I'm going to cheat. As far as I agree. I'd love to see some of the same stories, but I would love to see the Cats of Wolfire as an animated. I think that would be hilarious because I'm just a snarky person. I love stuff that is a little tongue-in-cheek, and I think that would be amazing. Especially maybe the old Hanna-Barbera style. I would love that. It would be awesome. But as far as kind of serious films, I actually would love to see more of almost a fantasy a la Lovecraft. So a whole bunch of stories with Easter eggs, but something completely original. That's what I think would be a really good film. Because I agree with Matt. There's a lot of stuff that how does it translate? So much of it is inner thought and So it'd be cool to just have a feature-length film that has a whole bunch of Easter eggs to different stories, and it wouldn't even necessarily have to be just Lovecraft.
That may be on the way.
Yeah.
You remember the movie Via Farva? Sorry, I'm not.
Yes, I
pronouncing it
love
correctly.
that movie.
That director has for years had on his plate making a movie about the Dreamlands, and 2 trailers have been released, and they obviously nod to the story of the High House in the Mist, Strange High House in the Mist, and they also make a nod to the White Ship. And they're probably going to actually do neither story, but it's going to be something wholly else. But it's like,
Perfect.
all he's doing is like making a trailer every 5 years. So I'm not. I've stopped waiting for the next book of Game of Thrones. You know what I mean?
Oh my gosh, don't even start with that.
If it was based into a series, if there was a Lovecraft series, you could do quite a bit. Like one of my favorite stories, I've read with R.H. Barlow, The Night Ocean. You know, that's a big.
So, but Matt, going off the, he's making a trailer, he's making a trailer. Mad Guy. What was that, 20-year?
But this is not animation
Right.
that can be stitched together. These are actors and actresses who
Can we
wait
stick
5
together?
years. Well, yeah, they could be, but you wait 5 years. What have they moved on, gained weight, look different, new hair, gray? I don't know. It's like he's going to have to, when he finally gets the money together, he's probably going to have to start all over from the beginning.
All right, so
Yeah.
we just watched, I did this thing with DeBronzo. DeBronzo sends me bad movies to watch. I watch them when I comment on them. We watched this thing on Shudder called Winter Beast.
Terrible.
And it's a terrible movie.
I unfortunately watched it reading your commentary later. I was scrolling down your Facebook comments as I was watching it later. Yeah.
But the thing about, one of the things about Winter Beast is that it was made over the course of 20 years
For real. I didn't know that.
with the same actors and actresses. It's like, so in one shot, this guy has a beard. And he's got a completely different wardrobe. And then he shuts the door and he's completely different. He's younger. And his hair is different. Like, what's going on here? And it's just like, it just doesn't make any sense. Now, we watched Lamageddon. And the movie takes place in one night, and there's one character who has 8 costume changes. You just every time he gets a new scene, he has a new costume on. But this, Snow Beast is basically just, just they threw away all that stuff 10 years ago. So you can do it.
It's
not going to be good.
There's what you can do and what
Just
we
wear the
want
same
to see.
red flannel.
If you've not watched these trailers, they're, I think, both on YouTube. They're superb hints of what could be. How this guy, he is really a very skilled director.
Yeah, he is. Yes.
What about the mound? I think that would be the there's certainly not going on in that as long a story that you could be very interested.
You don't have to-
Yeah, no, I
would
like
have to have some.
I like the Mound. I think the storyline would be updated to eliminate some inappropriate comments and scenes.
Okay, so the Mound is guilty of the worst of the italicized ending. That whole, I guess it was a technique for a pulp magazine that you italicize the ending to try and give it some punch. So it's done first in Spanish and then an English translation in parentheses, all italicized, and it goes on for a paragraph. And it's silly.
Is Caveman italicized? It's the same idea.
No, it's not. But
The window.
I always think of that scene from Castle Ard. It's like perhaps he was dictating.
Yeah,
So, you mentioned Castle Hall kind of animated. I read this morning, you'll find this, the new Sandman just dropped 2 bonus episodes, and I guess one or both of them were semi-animated, but they did dreams of 1,000 hats. So, yeah.
Call him up.
Hey, Neil.
Bridget said.
just an FYI, And look, you can go to lovecrafteZine.com if you want. From the top left, click on podcast. It'll show you upcoming guests, as well as links to the podcast on Spotify, iTunes, and so forth. And in my changes that I've got coming up, I need to update the Lovecraftian movies page, which is where Medium and these guys have suggested films to me to recommend to the public. I think on the recommended books, we just have so much fiction out there now, even since I started 11 years ago, that I'm going to change it to basically, if you want Lovecraftian books recommendations, watch the podcast, because that's the top complaint that we get, is that we make people add to their TBR. But if you haven't, check out that page. I'll be updating it within the next week or so of the movies page. I'll just say this: the first one on that page, simply because it's alphabetical, is a film called Absentia by Mike Flanagan before he
Made it big.
So
made it big. Yeah.
what this means is if you want to be listed first, your movie has to be named Aardvark.
Well, I'll tell you,
It's a Lovecraft movie.
it is such a good, whatever word you want to use, Lovecraftian movie without being based on a Lovecraft story, but, with that theme and with that uneasiness and that dread. So if you haven't seen it, check it out. And nobody's mad me to say this. So.
Mike Flanagan certainly doesn't need to.
No, he's good now. Yeah, actually, I interviewed him about that film years ago, and I told him that seemed very Lovecraftian to me. And he was very excited to hear that. He said, I really appreciate you saying that because I'm a big Lovecraft fan. So, because that's the mood I was going for. So. All right.
We got time for one more question. No? Going once? Going twice?
What do you have for lunch?
I had an apple croissant and pure leaf real brewed sweet tea.
Okay, good. We can handle that.
All right.
Thanks for being here, guys.
Wait. Remember? If you want to win this prize, if you want to win the Eldritch equation, send an email to ezineprizes@gmail.com, put Eldritch in the subject heading. In about 6 weeks, we draw a winner, and you could win this book.
Nobody actually ever reads anything. Matt just keeps it.
No, I'm on the
That's really so.
Or you can come to the booth and I'll sell you a copy.
Yeah, we got a bunch there. I know sign it for you.
Thanks for hanging out with us.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah. That's all right. Keep it moving.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Before I press stop, is this going to disappear somewhere, Kevin? Where'd he go?
Oh, I have a comment. You'll.
If I press stop recording,